Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. We've got a small crowd today, but we're up and live streaming to Facebook, and we're happy to see you all on this sunny day. I have a couple things we'll go through, and then folks can ask whatever they want. We've got some questions queued up as well. I know Theresa and I like to run this like a conversation, very casual. We just want some time to get to hear from you. My name is Nathan. I'm Theresa's campaign manager. I'm happy to be moderating today with you all. Happy we've got some beautiful fresh air out in the community as well. Very, very thankful for that. So we're gonna hope folks limit questions to under 1 minute so we can answer as much as possible. There's a lot to discuss, so please be succinct in the question. If there's further dialogue needed, we're happy to follow up after our town hall today. If you wanna sign up for a question, please put your name and the question in the chat so we can make sure we don't duplicate questions. And then we'll go from there in order of who signed up. And then if you've sent in a question today, I have those recorded as well. We'll call on each person, and you can mute and unmute yourself at the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. Our next town hall is going to be on October 25th, and that'll be our last one before the election, so coming up pretty quick. And then before we begin, we want to share a quick video with you all to tell you a little more about Theresa. So just 1 second.
Think about what you love about Lake Oswego. Our charming, elegant city is canopied with big trees. Our city is on the Willamette River, providing recreation and transport. Our lake is open to swimming and boating. Our trails parks, and natural spaces are safe, healthy, and flourishing for walkers, bikers, and dogs. We are happy and prosperous, but we have even a brighter future that is for all. I'm Theresa Kohlhoff, and I'm running for Mayor of Lake Oswego. Lake Oswego is one of Oregon's most livable cities, and I will lead us to an even brighter vision. During my time on the Lake Oswego City Council, I have fearlessly advocated for real solutions for everyone. I've been a lawyer for nearly 40 years, and I have used on council my lawyer skills of listening, analyzing, and negotiating, and will continue to do so as mayor. Most importantly, I am a grandmother. This particular role has taught me in a unique way to use my accumulated big heart, creativity, and wisdom for those coming to take my place. At a certain age, we come to know that the purpose of our lives now, the why, is these grandchildren and their opportunities. Lake Oswego needs a mayor who pursues the necessary steps to obtain economic housing for everyone. From seniors aging in place to workers living near their jobs and children near good schools. Pursues increased transportation opportunities as well as a transit-oriented development at Foothills. Absolutely insists we preserve our big trees. Prepares our citizens for any emergency, no matter the severity. Treats our climate crisis as the emergency it is. Advocates to the council for a standing diversity, equity, and inclusion advisory committee. Accomplishes goals by strengthening our connections with our neighbor cities, counties, and greater Oregon. Moves Lake Oswego to become renowned for joy and grace, generosity of spirit. Yes, together we will build Lake Oswego so there is peace, health, and safety. We'll keep Lake Oswego in budget, but we will do more. Join me. I am Theresa Kohlhoff, and I'm running for Mayor of Lake Oswego. Together, we are formidable.
Excellent. So, Theresa, before I ask your first question, do you have anything you want to say to kick us off?
Well, I'm very happy to see everybody. I know it's a small but mighty group here, and we're all pretty excited. 37 days to go, and I am happy that you're here because we have a lot more to talk about than we've talked about so far. So yeah, let's do it.
Wonderful. I'm going to start us off. Folks, feel free to put your question in the chat, get us going. But Theresa, I want you to tell us a little bit about your background and why you decided to run for mayor.
So it's not a big surprise. Most of you know me now and know that I am most certainly a woman, a mother, a grandmother, a lawyer, a very progressive woman, married to Mike Kohlhoff, who we've lived here in Lake Oswego since 1989. So we do have deep roots in the community. And have enjoyed ourselves very much. In about 2012, I went on the Oregon State Bar's Board of Governors, which is a very big deal in a little pond. It's a regulatory agency for all of the lawyers in the state of Oregon. And then when I didn't get even an interview, I took Emerge Oregon, which is for women thinking about a political elected position. And I didn't get even an interview. when an appointment came up for the city council, that made me so irritable that I ran in 2016, and I've been on the council since then. So by and large, my situation is such that this is a perfect time to put in the extra time. I have discovered that city council is quite time consuming if you're going to do the work, and I did the work. So I'm looking forward to being mayor, because even though it's what's termed as a weak mayor, you still have the ability to make appointments, you help set the agenda, and you are the face of Lake Oswego.
Excellent, thank you. I know Melissa has a question she wants to go ahead and ask.
Hello, nice to see you today. So I was wondering if we could chat about public safety. And I was wondering how you feel about a standing board and commission devoted to public safety, and what you think the future is for our fire department.
I'm chuckling a little bit because Melissa has actually moved me towards believing that we are going to need a separate advisory committee for public safety. I had thought that it could come under the DEI advisory committee, which I do also feel is necessary. I've come to think that Melissa was more right than I was, and that you're going to need one specifically for the police. And I do see that as this council has this new initiative to look at our police practices, and it will be focused on race, on the experience of other people that are not seeing and having the same responses to the police as, let's say, I am. And that's so unacceptable. That today I saw where I think it was Portland Monthly or something, ran an article on the history on the Poe family and the Burger Barn. And it really took me back, because that's my husband's case that filed for the Poes, where these dead possums were laid out there, and they said, oh, well, we didn't mean anything by that. We were just boys, come on, just the boys. And that was not bought. And it was obviously an implicit threat that the people, the Poes and everyone connected with the Burger Barn understood perfectly well that was a threat. And that particular issue was the first time that was the largest settlement they'd ever received to that date. And that opened up the police records for the first time. So Mike has always been very proud of that. My friends, that was 1981, and so little has been accomplished since then. And it's a heartbreak to him. And that's the answer that they give as to why it wouldn't make sense to do that. Because, as we see, Portland hasn't really progressed all that much at all. But the fact still remains that the work is there. And however we put it together, we just have to be more effective. So I do see that as separate. You asked me another question, but it slipped through my mind. There was a second part to that.
Yeah, just what you think the future of our fire department is. I mean, just do you think that we're going to merge with Tualatin Valley Fire at some point, or do you think that we will be able to fund it and staff it adequately so that our men and women are safe as they're serving us?
Well, this is the first that I've heard that there might be something underfoot to merge with Tualatin Valley. I don't see that happening. But I think we've got a fight on our hands, about the funding on the fire, because they're kind of the whipping boy. And I see no reason why that should be the case. And here's the reason I say that is that Lake Oswego has the ability to hire the staff or to have the services that it chooses to have, right? And so if they choose to have a full-on fire department, which they have, and they're well beloved, then you have to pay for that. And I have never heard people on the street saying, get rid of the fire department or get rid of the Southwood station. Oh my God, that's just, we're being overrun with fire people. No, that's just kind of the drumbeat of the budget committee and frankly management. So the thing to remember is that the finance department puts together the budget, and that's about 90% of the process is knowing that the numbers are accurate. So far, so good. But the first run through, the discretion, and about 10% of the total process is the city manager. So we're going to have to get through. We're going to have a decent council. And I certainly hope anybody's listening here knows that I am supporting Melissa as a city councilor, and we need her on. But we get a city council that has, the willingness to get in and do the work, for one, not just accept that, oh my gosh, we got to downsize the fire department because they don't work as hard, right, as the police. They're sleeping. They're doing all sorts of things that are not really benefiting the community. So we got all that stuff going on undercurrent, but always within the manager's office. So they are under the gun, and we're going to fight back.
Great. Thanks for that. Pull up my questions here. Our next one is, can you give us your thoughts on what can be done to optimize communication and working relationships between the different levels of government on issues like policing, transportation, and social services?
Well, this is going to be a short answer. Because as it relates to the national government, to the state, or to the local governments, we're going to get nowhere until and if we get a regime change. There's been practically no, there's been utter clownishness for the last 3.5 years. So I don't see anything happening there. We're just done. I would go to the National League of Cities, which is the National League of Cities. And when you would go to Washington, D.C., then these Trump administrators would come. And it was very clear that they were in a very different reality than we are. Somehow, if we prayed more, or if our families could spell fentanyl, or just stuff that would make yourself die, they would talk about infrastructure. And I remember this one in particular because I went, wow, that's just shocking. And the idea was that the rich people were going to loan us local governments the money to do our infrastructure, and we would pay interest to them for them loaning to us. So I can't remember whose bright idea that was. I'm thinking Ben Carson, but I could be wrong. No, don't take that to the bank. But it was that kind of mentality that somehow it was just all one big scam. So the answer is we're getting nowhere as it relates to transportation, even with DeFazio being the head of the transportation department or the committee. Social services, again, if you only prayed more, they would empower us to teach us how to not have needs for social services. It was very discouraging. As it relates to the state to us, then I think we're in better shape. We're in better shape, but everything is quite fluid. And I'm tremendously concerned this weekend. Not so much, I mean, not obviously, I don't want to hear as an old line feminist about, you know, people praise and all that stuff about the handmaids. But what I'm really concerned about is loss of health care. And I'm thinking to myself that if that were to be on our plates, that would be a state to, um, you know, local government sort of issue. And I don't entirely know how that would work out because of our uh, dysfunction to some degree between the R's and the D's on the state level. But that's a very practical problem that may be landing in our plates on our plates pretty soon.
Thanks, Theresa. We got a follow up to that. Can you talk a little more about how, as mayor, you'd work with other cities? Because there's some sentiment out there in the community that it's a failure to be collaborative with other cities and that the focus should be more insular. Can you talk about your thoughts on as mayor, how you'd be collaborative with other city leaders?
Frankly, as much as I've kind of enjoyed Kent as a person, he's been way laid back, and it's almost a little lazy. He has not joined those committees that are there for him to join, to be active in. And when I got into council, I was put on Impact, which is the liaison then between the cities and Metro. So Metro works, let's just say for the sake of argument, Metro is mainly for housing and transportation. I understand that it does other things, but it was essentially and by and large is still thinking in terms of housing and transportation, which is totally my jam. Then I got on the county city liaison, which is what they call C4, and then C4 then intersects with Metro, and then there's JPAC, which is the Metro's straight on transportation. And then, as if that wasn't enough about transportation, then I am the member for what they call A1 RCT. I got that wrong. R1 ACT, which is the state ODOT. The reason all of that is super important, although it's been quite difficult with the COVID, because you, talk to people when you get there, right? You become able to call people up on the phone, say, I have a problem. And the other day, you know, there was a perfect example of where that level of relationship was pretty evident. I got a call from Mark Gamba on his cell phone, said, I heard that Lake Oswego had this fireboat. Is this true? We've got, is it Elk Island? That is burning. And then we're able to, and if you look at the map, you know that if that burns, that's a threat to us. So that got done. So there's that absolute granular relationship, or you just call somebody up and get something happening. But past that, a deeper understanding, there's a lot of material out there. And so if you don't start interacting and hearing what people are experiencing and how we can help each other, just even understanding the issues, you're at a big deficit. And so if you think that your problem can be solved within every problem, let's say every problem can all be solved within the city limits, well, you're very young. That's just, you're very young or very lazy, but they're complex issues. And the truth is that all of us have some skills, but we don't have all the skills. We just don't. And we need each other.
Thanks, Theresa. I know Diane has a question she wanted to ask.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here, everyone. As a proud member of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion DEI Task Force, I wanted to ask you, what would you like to see as the vision and the future of the DEI Task Force after our initial term is completed?
Well, what Diane is talking about has evolved. So to begin with really quickly, I believe based on what I experienced, that originally the policy that was written and did take a year to write, and so I was part of that, in a way was a dodge. And the dodge was to not have to have the advisory committee, right? So we would just write it up as a policy, and we did. And I have to brag that it was actually my husband who also helped on that. And it was run by the various groups that had an interest, Respond to Racism and LO for Love. And they were happy with that policy. But as time went on, events continued. We've had incident after incident after incident. So that obviously that wasn't getting anything accomplished. And then there was the blow up with Melissa coming to council, saying the obvious, that she had been mistreated. So and inadvertently, probably. I mean, that's the other piece to this. It's not like people are necessarily maniacal; they're just clueless. So the suggestion then quickly was to get this DEI task force that would talk about all the various dimensions of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so that included, women, and it included people who were disabled and old and what have you. So all of that was how it started. But as time has gone on, and a lot is getting accomplished, and a lot will get accomplished, the events made it clear that by the time we get that done by the end of the year, it will not be enough. There will be something, because the two charges that were most important was getting people on boards and commissions, which is still really important, because that's when you get heard. I mean, people can't shut you up. Whereas if you get your 2 minutes as citizen involvement, you're out of there, and then nobody pays any attention to you. But get them on boards and commissions, and then secondarily get them employed. So if we got that accomplished, that would be something. And I don't think that that's enough, but I don't think it's too little either. Then after that, there's no doubt in my mind, you've got to have a whole new start and get advisory committee that, gets appointed, and again, have the appointments be truly enlightened and have that as a standing committee that is watching and so forth. Eventually, I think that you do need an employee that is within the city itself to be looking out for the personnel and other policies that are, what I'm trying to say, that affect and impact both the employees within the city, but also the city itself. Now, we're a little ways from that, but that would be how I would see it. So I would see, to answer your question, lawyer to lawyer, I would see the DEI task force ending with the end of its charge, and then reinventing itself as an advisory committee, a standing advisory committee.
Nancy Osborne, you're up.
Oh, there you are. Nancy, I'm not hearing you.
Nancy, you are on mute.
So we were ecstatic about the Helen Ann Woods vote last Thursday, I guess it was. That brings me to ask the question, there are a lot of changes that are going to have to be dealt with concerning climate change. What do you foresee as mayor having to deal with around that issue?
Well, I say this, and I want you to really take this in on a deep level. I, as mayor, can't do it. I absolutely have to have a decent council. And a lot of what didn't happen had more to do with, the fact that there were very few of us. There were, and I don't want to toot my own horn, but I'm the real thing. And you're not going to get, it's not cum si cum sa who gets in as mayor. There's a lot of like, oh, low-hanging fruit. Now, the climate is an emergency. And so that's the first thing, and has to happen, that we have it as an emergency. Our climate plan is not awesome. It's basically still asking for relatively simple things that probably are not going to make a huge dent. And now at this point, I don't see that as the right thing at all. I think that there are certain obvious activities that must take place, and we've got to ask everybody to buck up and start living that lifestyle. One being, of course, to put our tremendous efforts on transit. We keep frittering away money off on widening lanes, and I mean, it just drives you nuts. That all needs to go into transit for obvious reasons, to pull us out of this fossil fuel lifestyle. Then, of course, the trees are clearly within our power to help with the carbon storage, and that whole range, our forest range we're part of, has global implications. And the third thing is kind of like, I mean, I feel very uncomfortable about this. I realize to sell it, a lot of liberals will say, well, it's going to produce all these jobs. And I guess I believe that, but that's not, to me, that's not the bottom line. I mean, I realize that, for example, if we build transit, there are going to be jobs involved in building that transit, right? But that's not really what we're getting at. What we're getting at is helping people get where they have to go without having to be in a single occupied vehicle all the time. And that seems to me to be the emergency right there, and not get sidetracked in the whole free market capitalist thing. I will let others that believe that do that advertising, but that's not really where I come out. So the emergency that and not get fobbed off with these fake glue deals. Like my favorite out of the climate action plan, and mind you, we stopped even having in that plan to replant trees, because, well, where would we put those trees? We'd have too many trees. Not enough rakers. No, you didn't hear that. They had this deal in there as to how to incentivize the builders of multifamily housing to put electric chargers for electric cars. Like, that would be a resolution. To me, that's just insulting.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm going off. I had another question come in, but I have a follow-up question. Can you talk a little more about the issue that arises from having a program option such as incentivizing EV charging? Can you kind of go in a little more about why that's not a good use of climate action?
It's Nathan. This, and he's giving me a hard time because he knows perfectly well what's wrong with that. Stop with the incentivizing all the time. When you incentivize, that means you're taking out of the pool money that we have to get our other work done, to put in the pockets of these guys who have it in their brains that their profits have to be at God knows what, 20, 30%. So stop the madness, okay? Secondly, I don't know about you, but the cost of we're not building multifamily homes. We're not affordable ones, okay? We have no affordable housing that is in the works right now, not any. So the idea that we're gonna incentivize what, Shorenstein at their Meadows 116 luxury houses on to put in electric car chargers? That's insane. It's just a little bitty piece of a huge picture. Do you want me to keep on going? I'm going to reach over there on this Zoom call.
That was great. No, thank you. Thanks for answering that. Our next question that we had come in was, so aside from crisis response issues, COVID-19, and the direct impacts of that, what are, in your opinion, the three most pressing issues facing the city aside from COVID-19?
Well, I've alluded to that, and they're linked. So it's very clear that transportation and housing is a huge problem. Whether or not people understand that or understand the link, they should. And second, of course, climate change is waiting for no one. If you still need to be convinced of climate change and its impacts, then I don't know, you were missing during the last, two weeks. And the thing about climate change is I recognize, as with transportation, I recognize that there are some things that are outside of our control. So that, for example, I would love to see us have a high-speed transportation along the rails running from Lake Oswego to Portland. And as you recall, there have been plenty of people going, oh no, that's got to have a bike and ped. Well, as soon as you bike and ped that, we lose those rails. So luckily that ruse of trying to get us to inadvertently lose our right to that has stopped. I'm sure it'll pop its head up again, but it's stopped for now. But the point being that is a little beyond what Lake Oswego can really do. I mean, it's part of the consortium, but it would take a mass amount of money. And in the shorter run, our better bet is that Southwest Corridor Max, which will get funding from the transportation bond. Now, I'm going to tell this group, and they'll be very surprised, of course, to hear this. But that was a joke. What just fries me about that is that max will be a game changer economic development wise, because it is going to have its terminus at Bridgeport, which would allow for us to be in a short distance away from, well, it's right there on Boone's Ferry. So the idea that it would only be for Tualatin Tiger, it's crazy talk. It's going to be within a very short distance from the mobilization plot that's right there on Boone's Ferry, which is where I want my affordable housing unit, which is the Metro bond money, which is where it should be, close to services, to medical services, to schools, to everything walkable. It is a transit-oriented development right there. So why am I irked about that? I'm very excited about that bond and I want it to pass. And the part that irks me is, of course, the businesses, they go, oh no, that would be horrible. I mean, we wouldn't be able to pay we would not be able to keep employees. We would have to let them go. if you put this on us. And so they're putting, I think I read today something like 860,000 has flown in from various places on this bogus deal about no, it's very bad for business. So I'm pretty tired of all that. Okay, I've had my rant, but you got to think that all of that is connected. And the third thing, of course, is our diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now, Diane wrote an editorial that I'm telling you, I jumped up and down and I said, that woman rocks, because it's to the point that we really need to speak up for ourselves. We're in dangerous times, and we're not going to have diversity, equity, and inclusion if we don't get diverse housing opportunities. It's a racial issue. They're talking about developing Stafford, but it's supposed to be low density. Well, we're back where we were before. Low density always is for rich people, right? So, and the issue of people say, oh, well, what is your plan to bring in the poor and the homeless and the vandalizers and what? No, really. We have already here in this city, I think it was 10% of our students are on free or reduced lunch. And if you figure that our average income was 100,000, and when we were working on this, my daughter came up with another figure, it was 150,000, but Nathan wouldn't let us use that. Whatever, stay with 100,000, okay? The fact that 10% of our students don't have the money for paying for their lunches is horrific. So the long and the short of it is, those are things that I care about. I think those are the big issues, and we'll deal with the small issues, but kind of going off onto little frittery things, I'm not there.
So Theresa, if we're going to be real specific, you've talked about the climate emergency, you've talked about some of the things, but I want to ask you, what are your plans? How are you going to protect trees? Because we have folks out there saying that, the city needs to be sustainable, and that, saying a lot of stuff about how, as a community, you can achieve these, sustainability in general, but there's not a lot of plans. So I want to hear, Theresa, what are your plans specifically to protect our community's trees?
Okay. So my husband was city attorney for Wilsonville for, I don't know, decades, 30 plus years. So I was talking to him about the trees, and I said, what we need to do is to have a moratorium on cutting down any trees to get people's attention. He goes, well, I don't know. That'd be really hard. I said, I'm tired of you. We're not. I don't know what we're going to do, but it's something I would like to explore that on day one, but also on day two to get it sent over to the planning commission is the way this works, to not give them all day and night to work on this. But when you hear people, and I said it when I was a candidate, but I understand it better now, they'll say, you got to get the tree code into the development code. Well, really, that's not exactly true. What it is you just take the tree code, that just falls off, and you deal with the development code. And as part of development, there are trees on those lots, right? So the trees are like a river that would be running through, or big rocks or whatever. God knows what natural things are on property. And then the trees do, to the extent that we decide, they drive development. Whereas now they're nothing. They are literally to the point that in the tree code, if a developer makes the determination that their footprint would be, and their pro forma with that footprint would be such that it would be better for them to place their building wherever, or spread their footprint out, or put in extra whatever, a tennis court, a 3-car driveway, whatever, fill up the whole lot, then they can cut every tree. That's just wrong. So the development code really is the hammer. And, I hear some of my opponents, and it's not going to happen with them. So you have well, we could save a tree here, or we could, talk them into, through voluntary means of citing the property in such a way as to save a tree or two. Well, you can see how far that's gone. And I asked my tree people to tell me how often pleading has saved us. It has not. And the second one is equal sophistry, which is, well, we need to empower the staff to be able to do various things. What? With the interpretation that we have of our tree code, which is basically you run through all these various things like a hamster, but ultimately the pro forma of the developer wins. Okay, so that can't be. That just, it has to be the way we have to do it. We have to balance yes, there's economic development, and yes, there is the need for housing options, but we have got to put the trees in as at least the equal of those, and it's not now.
Thank you. So what are your concerns, if you have any, about the city's budget priorities? And then as mayor, how would you address the concerns?
Well, the budget. We just had our budget meeting. And the nut of that coconut was that we were doing fine presently, that our property taxes tend to be flat, keep our expenses and income fairly flat. And according to our city manager and our finance director, we're probably slower to feel the effects of COVID, and will be slower to come out from under it. I think that we have had Tea Partiers for the last 8 years. Their idea was constantly cut. Their idea always was, well, we have this little box, and we should actually shrink that little box, at which point, everything else has to fit in that box. And usually that meant services or other things that would be for the betterment of people as opposed to business, got cut. And I did not realize, but it is absolutely the case, that it was our prior city manager who was for the glide path, where we would get rid of FTEs. Well, FTEs are people, right, doing work that we needed done. So the long and the short of it is, let me just make this quicker. I personally hate that way of thinking. I always start with, well, what is best? What do we really want? What do we want? And then secondarily, of course, what do we need? And then third, how can we do it? How could we afford it? How could we make it work? And only if none of that gets us do we say, okay, well, then this is what we need to settle for. The budget committee and the thinking is exactly the opposite. They never think in terms of when it makes sense to expand the amount of revenue that we can get. There's not a single one of the counselors that including Joe Buck and including John Lamont, that could even wrap their brains around a construction excise tax that could be there for that the legislature said we could use for affordable housing. Oh no, both of them couldn't fathom the idea of getting the full transportation SDCs. They knocked it down by 70%. There was supposed to be an increase of that, and yet they want to take it again out of streets. And the other night at the budget committee, I said, well, we could have a go bond and just pay for these trails that you guys want and the sidewalks or whatever. And they go, oh no, that would be ridiculous. Oh no, we can't do that. That would cost us money. Well, it is going to cost us money. You know that? Our infrastructure is such that it is going to cost us money. And the thing that I keep wanting to get across to people is that infrastructure is an economic development boon. You don't have good business. You don't have a good business environment with horrifying infrastructure, or you don't have anything to do with it, but certainly schools. But the point I'm trying to make is that we need revenue to come in, and we need to do what it is that we want to do. Now, what Melissa was asking about the fire department is has no real basis in the whole thing. It's just like austerity again, and they're the ones that we're looking to cut, or to, you know, worse yet, they've got some schemata that would be that they go out and start up a little side hustle with transport, picking people off the floor from the nursing homes. It's really degrading.
Theresa, I have two quick follow-ups to that specific question that have come in. And then Alan has one more question, and then we'll wrap up the town hall. Can you, in like 30 seconds, explain what SDC and construction excise taxes are and how they're helpful? And then what do you think the $2 million surplus should be invested in based upon your last budget meeting?
Well, I'll take the easier question first. SDCs are systems development charges, which are prepayments by the developer, which are required by law to pay for impacts that they're causing. What was the other one? Oh, construction excise tax is, I believe it's 1% on residential, and 3% on 3 or more percent. I don't think there's a cap on commercial, but it's often 3 when it's been used as 3%. And again, the legislature gave that to us to apply for affordable housing. You know, I mean, that's what that is. The 2 million, I heard from Sean Cross. Now, see, that's another thing that sort of drives me crazy. They never asked us that. Sean Cross just said, oh, that's going to be applied to the city hall. I don't know what to say about that. I'd need to think about that. I certainly wouldn't put it into paving. I probably, in the short run, you know what I would really like to see for a change? Like, could we have some programs that would actually help people, like the women who need childcare, so they can keep doing their work, and be able to be employed at home? Apparently the city has that program for some of its women employees. Women outside of there, you know, are just going to be set back so badly from COVID by the time it starts back up again. I'll have to think about that. That's my credit card. You see how, but that's what I'm thinking of right off.
Thank
But
you.
not into the city hall. That's ridiculous.
Alan, you're up if you want to ask your question.
There you are. You're off.
Hi. Yeah, I have a question. We live near Woodmont Park, and we were shocked. We go for early morning walks, and we were shocked one day to find the whole park bulldozed. And
except for one narrow edge in the back.
yeah, and we started talking to people in the neighborhood, and they were pretty unhappy. They said that this was done basically against community input, and I was just wondering, what would you do to prevent situations from this from happening in the future?
Well, Alan, I had signed that petition of Scott Hanley's to see if we can work that through. I knew that there were some things that I probably would have liked a little differently, but basically I live near Springbrook and it works great. And they're always trying to do something over there, and all we have to do is show them the charter. So there's something to be said about having the charter say, no, really, you're just not going to do it. So when Woodmont came up, I was not real happy about it because the neighbors didn't especially want it. And we were $2 million. And I could have had that $2 million on my credit card, right? With the other $2 million, we would have. So they came back and they eliminated the bathroom. So it was like 1.7 million. Don't take these numbers to the bank, but it was something like that. It's going to be $500,000 for the toilet. And then Ivan took me out there and showed Ivan the parks director, because I was not a believer. And he said, no, look here. We got native grasses and we got this and brambles, and we're going to take out these invasives and such and such. And you know that tree, it's a dead tree, and we're going to carve it and make some sort of bench. And so it went on. So when it came to council, I had every expectation that I'm sure you did, that what they were going to do was clear out the invasive trees, and we're going to keep it as a natural preserve. And the deed clearly says that. So I get this email from somebody who showed me the picture. And when I asked, I was shocked. And when I asked the manager and Ivan, what is this? And they didn't give me a good answer. Well, they gave me this, and I just ghosted. And I'm going to vote for, I mean, I can't tell you, oh yes, this is going to come to council and this is the way I'm going to vote for it. But I am very inclined to just say, no, really, we're just going to go in the charter and that's the end of it. Because Woodmont is a good example of how, I don't know what happened there. I don't know whether that was a goof or whether or not they were trying to say, oh, well, we're going to put in native grasses. We're going to make it look like a natural preserve. I have no idea, but it was not what I was told. And I'm as aggravated as anybody could be.
Thank you.
All right, Theresa, we've got 2 minutes left. I've got one question for you, and then I'm going to post in the chat. I'm going to share my screen real quick. Melissa, do you want to give a little more information about the event happening on the 30th?
Sure. So I am hosting Theresa Kohlhoff for Mayor of Lake Oswego, Jules Walters for Mayor of West Lynn, Julie Fitzgerald for Mayor of Wilsonville, and Lacey Beatty for Mayor of Beaverton. And we're going to have a community discussion around climate change and civic engagement. So that will be on the 30th at 6 p.m. We'll be live on Facebook, or you can also register. So I'm really looking forward to having this dialogue. And I will say that we all met sort of prior to, and we just had a really engaging and interactive and exciting conversation about what our region and the future would look like with these particular mayoral candidates. And it was just really exciting, and I think it'll be a really, really fun and uplifting and exciting and hopeful discussion, because really these female perspectives at very different places and in their lives and everything, it's just a really exciting time. So I hope people come and become engaged and join us on the 30th.
Thanks, Melissa. I threw the Zoom information in the chat as well. Theresa, your last question today is, why should voters vote for you as opposed to your opponents?
And you gave me 1 minute. All
Please,
right,
woman.
I'll make this the fastest ever. Ruth Bader Ginsburg said, "Women belong in all places decisions are being made." And I'm a mother and I'm a grandmother and I'm a very progressive woman. And I need to be with the people who are making these decisions.
Excellent. Thank you. Folks, I appreciate you joining us today. We're going to have one more town hall on October 25th at 3 o'clock. We've got 37 days until Election Day. So if you're so inclined, we'd love to have your support. We're making phone calls. We're doing handwritten postcards. We can deliver them to you with addresses for you to fill out. Have folks write in, why you support Theresa, why others should too. I know I got a few of those during the primary, and I really enjoyed getting that handwritten stuff, especially at that time, because none of us were leaving our homes at that point in May. So, it's a nice, a way to get someone to actually take a few seconds to read a little more about Theresa. You can reach out to us through our website, which is votefortmk.com. I'm going to put that in the chat. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions in the future. And we really appreciate you joining us today. We want to give quick thank yous to Water Tower Band, who created the intro music for us today, 12-1 Productions for their video production, Denise Dodson, photography, Aero Sound Studios for the music I'm going to play as you all leave today, and Clarity Sanderson for media help. Please check your voter registration to make sure all the details are correct. If you're like me and you moved this week, you need to update your address so that your ballot can get sent to you. Oregon is a very safe state, but things can still happen. And so you want to make sure that your information is correct, because, every single vote matters. And that could be a whole nother Zoom town hall about every single race that's been, within 10 to 50 votes, and why your vote does matter, even though some people like to tell you it doesn't. It does. Mail your ballots early to prevent any issues. You can also drop your ballot off at the pull-in behind Lake Oswego City Hall. Clackamas County, their election site has a list of drop boxes that you can drop them into, and vote down your whole ballot, because not just president matters, your mayor matters, your city council matters, the DA matters, your sheriff matters, all elected official positions matter. So please, I can't believe please vote. Every single position is important. Have a safe weekend. If you're going out tonight, please wear a mask, wash your hands, social distance. We still got COVID, even though it's a nice day out. It seems like it's not here. It's still here. And we together are formidable. Thank you all so much for joining us.